of the war. So I think in a way that helps us make our message here, whereas in other countries they don't always have that background, and so they don't always. I think perhaps the first thing to recognise is that Bosnia and Herzegovina has provided protection, which is our key concern at the UN Refugee Agency. Are people being given shelter, access to food, to medical care? That is being provided in a very difficult position for the government, because you have tens of thousands of people moving through the country who, for the most part, do not intend to stay. So we've been very aware of the responsibility that Bosnia-Herzegovina has taken on, and perhaps a responsibility that needs to be shared with more countries, regionally and internationally. So we do recognise that. Some of the centres are better than others. It was really quite uplifting to go to Ušivac, which is a family centre in a beautiful forest not far from Sarajevo. All services are being provided there for women and girls, for the families, to make sure that they're settled. But of course, for the most part, they move on. So the challenge is that the government is providing basic humanitarian assistance with support from agencies like the United Nations Refugee Agency and the International Organization for Migration, along with a rather wonderful group, a Bosnia women's group that is supporting the families. So, but then we see Lipa, for example, not such good conditions, way out of town, but where a new facility is being built, which looks, it's only half built at the moment, but looks to be excellent. Well, I think COVID has globally, it's been a particular impediment for people seeking international protection, people fleeing violence and persecution. Overwhelmingly, countries have closed their borders to protect public health, as of course, as sovereign countries, they are more than entitled to do. But the consequence for refugees and asylum seekers is that they have not been able to exercise their right to claim asylum. Now, here in Bosnia-Herzegovina, the borders, you have allowed people to come in. You do have an asylum system. Bosnia and Herzegovina have signed the major treaties, the Refugee Convention, the Statelessness Conventions, and you do have a system. So that is continuing to work. It's a slow system. I can make some comments about that in a moment, but basically COVID has really impacted the ability of people fleeing violence and persecution to achieve assessment of their claim for refugee status. Well, the UN Refugee Agency works with the government. We're here to support and help the government, so that's a key point. But the system here is one that is not really working well at all. And the system is one in which everybody who comes through the country must register their intent to claim asylum. Now, the truth is that most don't want to claim asylum, and this is a significant challenge. Most people are not asylum seekers and refugees. They are migrants, and Bosnia and Herzegovina has the sovereign right to of course, respect their human rights, but nonetheless to deal with them as migrants. Our mandate from the United Nations is to work with asylum seekers and refugees, people who are fleeing violence and persecution. And you do have a legislative system here. But the difficulty is that by requiring everybody, let's say approximately 72,000 people over the last 3 or so years, everybody is required, in effect, to declare that they are intending to seek asylum, and the reality is that they're not. And our challenge is to identify those relatively few who need international protection. And what we would like to work with the government more actively on over these next few months is to ask if we can be able to identify people who need international protection, identify them earlier, so that we can, in a way, take them out of that bigger group and work with them and work with the government so that they have a speedy and fair system of asylum. They will know if the government proper processes say you do meet the definition of a refugee or you don't. You do or you don't need international protection. If you don't need international protection, then the government may quite properly deport them back to their country of origin.